10, Black Widow. Sorry Black Widow, but there isn't any way you are making it out of a fight with Gore alive. He's had billions of years of experience when it comes to destroying and defeating gods, and I don't think your spy skills are going to save you in this battle. I'm sorry Black Widow, I love you, but it's just not gonna cut it. Also, if we're talking MCU Black Widow, I mean, that'd be a really easy fight cause she's dead, so yeah. The best shot that Black Widow might have in terms of a comic book Black Widow obviously is to distract Gore and get him monologuing, to bide her some time to put a miraculous tactical plan into action, but even then I do not think it would be enough. Gore has thousands of years of combat experience, which means that whatever Black Widow threw at him he likely could just push through, and even if initially he wasn't victorious, eventually he would be. Number 9, Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is a member of the Eternals. In the Eternals film, he was one of my favorite characters personally, played by the amazing Don Lee. Unfortunately, in that film he was killed by the Deviants. Gilgamesh joined the Avengers in the comics back in the 1980s. Originally he was known as the Forgotten One, but he would take up the name of Gilgamesh during his time on the superhero team. Normally, Eternals aren't so easy to kill, because when they die, they can come right back. And instead of being brought back as like android-like synthetic beings that are created by the Celestials, like in the movie, they were once humans who were simply altered by the Celestials to be a superpowered immortal race in the comics. They can be resurrected instead by a giant system known as the Machine that is integrated with Earth. But needless to say, Gilgamesh's superior strength, fighting skills, and immortality would still not be enough to stop Gore. He was used to defeating godlike beings such as Gilgamesh every day, all the time. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to show our channel some love on another platform, head on over to Facebook and give us a like, give us a follow, do all the Facebook stuff. Number 8, Quicksilver. Quicksilver is known for being one of the fastest superheroes in Marvel Comics. If we use the term speedster at Marvel, which I don't think we do, we know him as one of the greatest ones within that universe. One of the greatest speedsters. More of a DC thing. Quicksilver, like his sister Scarlet Witch, ended up joining the Avengers, leaving the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and Magneto, who Wanda felt they were basically indebted to. Like Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver became a hero while working on the Avengers team. And you might think his speed would be enough to keep him safe from Gore, but something you'd be forgetting is how relentless Gore the God Butcher is, and how he can pretty much make almost infinite copies of himself, each made from a part of himself as he's bonded with the All Black, so he can just basically like pop up other versions of him all over the place. I've seen what happens when Quicksilver gets mauled in his own series and Avengers tie-in, Quicksilver No Surrender, and let me tell you, he doesn't fare too well. While Quicksilver can run away, he can't run forever as he does get tired and needs to rest, even with his superhuman stamina and speed. And this, I imagine, would ultimately be his undoing if Gore didn't kill him before then.
Coming in at number 7, we have Batmite. Another character made canon in the DCEU by an offhanded reference, Batmite is a troublesome imp from the same fifth dimension as the Superman villain Mr. Mxyzptlk. Except this guy is a huge Batman fanboy and loves to be a giant nuisance to the Dark Knight. Given Peacemaker's annoyance of being compared to such a tiny and infuriating character, it seems likely that he'd try to find a helmet specifically to take on a fifth-dimensional villain, which sounds ludicrous, but we've already seen that Peacemaker's father has space warping technology in his secret supervillain bunker. Whatever the case, Peacemaker's brand of violence would definitely be a shocking change of pace for the character of Batmite, so maybe the imp should watch his back after getting mentioned on the show. Coming in at number 6, we have Aquaman. As a superhero, Aquaman was a bit of a joke character for a long time, before more recent incarnations have begun to successfully inject just the right amount of seriousness to the character. However, that doesn't stop Peacemaker from saying some not safe for work things about Aquaman on the show, and given both John Cena and Jason Momoa's amount of muscle, that would be one hell of a showdown to see. When asked in a promotional interview if Peacemaker could beat Aquaman in a fight, John Cena replied that Aquaman's fitness was one of the only superheroes that gave him pause. However, given how the Peacemaker team was able to handle a gorilla in last week's episode, maybe animal superpowers aren't the best defense against a hero as violent as Peacemaker. Coming in at number 5, we have Rick Flag. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen James Gunn's The Suicide Squad yet, but one of the better twists of the movie, and the reason Peacemaker's solo series was such a surprise, is because Peacemaker was such a fantastic villain in the film. Ordered by Amanda Waller to prevent information on Starro from getting out to the public, Peacemaker is forced by his twisted moral code to fight and eventually brutally kill a hero he admired, Rick Flag, who is disgusted that he got beaten by a man such as Peacemaker. It's a pretty devastating death scene in an otherwise pretty comedic movie, and unlike other hypotheticals on this list, we got to see all too well that Peacemaker can definitely beat Rick Flag. Coming in at number 4, we've got what's sure to be a controversial pick with Spider-Man. No, these two characters have never crossed over and interacted before, but if the corporate overlords ever allowed it, I'm not sure I would bet on Spidey. Peter Parker would obviously not agree with Peacemaker's brand of justice, given how often he gets into conflicts with other violent vigilantes like Punisher and Daredevil, and would likely try to defeat Peacemaker if they ever met. However, unlike most heroes, Peacemaker wouldn't be startled by the fact that Spider-Man is just a teenager. As we mentioned before, Peacemaker is willing to fight and kill anyone in the name of peace. And this means the usual moments that older members of the Avengers would have of expressing worry at Spider-Man's youth would mean absolutely nothing to Peacemaker. So, hope your spider sense still works, Peter. Otherwise, Peacemaker is coming for you.
Number 2, Ares. Ares is the god of war, so I think you see where I'm going with this. God. Ares ended up on the Dark Avengers team and was also part of the Mighty Avengers, the initiative. While he might not be on the main roster of Avengers, he seemed like an important one to mention given the fact that, he's an actual god. How do we know that Gore can beat him? Because, well, Gore has already defeated a ton of gods, including those that symbolize or represent war, which means that he's already got experience taking down others like Ares. So what's to stop him from defeating this god of war from the Greek pantheon? I'm pretty sure Gore is also going to destroy Zeus in Thor: Love and Thunder, and it's possible that the other gods of the Greek pantheon, Ares included, will also get decimated by Gore and the All Black.
Number 10. Batman gets punched out by Hal Jordan. Batman had a hard time getting along with the Green Lantern after his murderous incarnation as Parallax. The tension between these two came to a head in Green Lantern Rebirth, when Hal decides he's pretty much fed up with Batman's paranoia and he just socks him one. A real mean right hook right to the jaw. Batman drops from the single blow unconscious. Guy Gardner happens to be nearby, who Batman basically did the same thing to in Justice League number 5, just a one shot, boom. He's pretty happy to see Batman get what's been coming to him. It's certainly not Batman's worst defeat by a pretty wide margin, but it's definitely a serious blow to Batman's pride as well as his face, since he's basically just been knocked out with a single punch from a regular human. Then again, Batman doesn't exactly have superpowered endurance or anything, so it does make sense that he could be brought down in one punch. What really gets me going is if Batman was so paranoid, why didn't he see this punch coming? World's greatest detective gets blindsided?
And before we continue, guys, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up on our video because it goes a long way for us here at the studio. And if you don't do it, we're going to be really sad for an entire year, so. Number 9, Jason Todd. A Death in the Family is a 4-part storyline written by Jim Starlin and published in 1988, and it's one of the biggest DC moments ever in comic history. This was a huge moment in the Bat story because we see the Joker beat the second coming of Robin, Jason Todd, and when I say he beats him, I mean he beats him to death. Yeah, he gets a crowbar and then a bomb just to end it all off. And it's more than just a beating that's so horrible. The Joker also used Jason's birth mother. Yeah, he blackmailed her in order to get closer to Jason. And then of course the Joker killed her too. So this is a double whammy. All the defeats, all the feels, our hearts. And what's even crazier about this whole thing is that it was up to the fans to decide his fate. Yeah, this actually came to life thanks to the producers allowing the readers to decide what happens next. There was a 36-hour period with a number you could call and vote for if you wanted the Joker to kill Robin or not. And it was pretty close apparently, something like 72 votes a difference, which is wild. Some fans even admitted to calling in more than once. They just really wanted him out of there, eh? And this was of course a blessing in disguise because it brought us the glorious Red Hood, who we can't help but love.
Number 8. Spider-Man vs. Mysterio. When Mysterio first appeared way back in 1964, he gave Spidey a real run for his money. In this story, reports of Spider-Man robbing different stores in the night are hitting the news. Pete becomes pretty worried and thinks maybe he's going crazy, committing crimes in his sleep or something. He even considers visiting a psychiatrist at one point, but decides against it, fearing that he might ruin his secret identity. Later, a costumed being calling himself Mysterio appears at the Daily Bugle and tells Jameson that he's a crime fighter and he's here to bring Spider-Man to justice. He vanishes in a puff of smoke, leaving a note telling JJ to publish a challenge for Spider-Man to meet Mysterio on the Brooklyn Bridge for a showdown. The battle that follows is a particularly bitter defeat for Spidey, as Mysterio uses his special effects expertise to counteract Spider-Man's webbing, causing it to melt, and messes with his spider sense using a powerful mist that deadens the senses and reduces Spider-Man's reactions. Spidey is also blinded by the mist. Afterwards, Mysterio has a great photo op with Jameson, being hailed as a hero for taking on the menace of Spider-Man. Spidey uses this opportunity to hit Mysterio with a spider tracer and follows him back to his base to learn the truth behind Mysterio's evil ways, to eventually later defeat him.
Number 7. Vision. Vision, being an all-powerful android, alas, would not protect him from the reach of Gore the God Butcher. I doubt Vision or his maker in the comics, Ultron, would be able to stand against Gore, even if they were joined up together. While Vision might be smart, Gore just has way more experience when it comes to defeating those that stand against him. And while it's never explicitly stated, I don't think, that Gore has defeated any gods of technology that either represented that concept or were in fact made of technology, it is implied that he's defeated gods of all kinds in the comics, which would likely include technological gods. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Gore had taken on Phalanx, who ruled over the Technarchy, or the Phalanx's creators themselves, Titans, which were basically AI societies that evolved into a singularity, who he could easily see as tech-based gods. And if he could down a Titan, he could certainly down Vision. If Ant-Man were small, Gore would squish him like a bug. If he were big, he would just rip out his giant heart. The reality is that Gore has taken on bigger beings than Ant-Man. At one point, he downed an Elder God, smugly brandishing its heart in victory. What's worse is that Gore is also somewhat of an inventor and kind of, in a way, a scientist like Hank Pym was. And he's definitely capable of thievery like Scott Lang once was. Although Gore usually prefers to kill those he generally steals from, as many of them are gods, so his version of stealing is more like murder and then steal the thing. Gore actually uses the heart of the Elder God he defeats for a deadly and evil project that he's working on, a god bomb intended to destroy all the gods, ending their reign over the cosmos once and for all. Number 5. Cersei. Cersei is a member of the Eternals, but for a while she actually ran with the Avengers herself. She is known for being a good friend of Iron Man, and she went on a few adventures with the Avengers team, even joining them for a time and becoming the romantic partner of another Avenger member, Black Knight. Cersei was also a member of the team known as the God Squad as well, and technically as an Eternal, she's pretty much on a god tier level. Eternals are immortal beings who are simply resurrected after they die and have lived for millennia. As such, they are known throughout history as beings of myth and lore. Cersei herself was once known as Circe the Sorceress because of her abilities to see into others' minds, cast illusions, and manipulate matter. However, not even this would protect her against Gore. Like Gilgamesh, the Eternal mentioned before her, Gore would not only end both of them, but he would likely also destroy the planet simply to prevent them from being resurrected by the Machine, the powerful system that brings the Eternals back after they die, and like I said, is heavily integrated into the planet. Number 4. Scarlet Witch. Wanda might be one of the most powerful heroes on the Avengers, at least when it comes to magic, but she is also, pretty squishy. She was killed at one point by Rogue, wielding bone claws, and so I don't think Gore would have too difficult of a time disposing of her, sadly. Sorry, Wanda. Granted, if we're talking MCU Wanda, then he shouldn't struggle really at all. She is possibly gone forever, or will be, at the very least, MIA for a while after the events of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. In the comics though, Wanda is a powerful reality warper and chaos magic wielder, but if Gore managed to surprise her, he could easily eliminate the Scarlet Witch.
Number 3, Magneto and Wolverine. Look, I bite my nails, alright, a lot. I can't even pull a hangnail some days, okay? I grab it, I count myself down, and then last minute I just bail. It's too spicy. I don't have enough willpower to do it. Now, I couldn't even imagine this next one, okay? I couldn't imagine if all of my bones got ripped out of my body at the same time. And that's exactly what happens to Wolverine when Magneto has had enough of his nonsense. So this all takes place during the Fatal Attractions event. Wolverine doesn't even have a chance to scream, apparently. The adamantium that bonded to his bones erupted outward like water bursting through a dam. That's how they put it. Ugh. And he's still breathing when this happens. I mean, if this isn't one of the worst things to go through, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, thankfully Xavier wiped Magneto's memory and then Wolverine was out of commission for a while. I mean, he had metal spikes sticking out of his body, so I don't think he's getting any grocery shopping done anytime soon.
Number 2, Superman gets beat by Alfred. Injustice, Gods Among Us had some pretty epic moments, like this crazy showdown between Batman and Superman that ends in a broken back for Batman. In this story, we visit an alternate DC universe in which Superman has gone mad and takes over the world as a dictator, after witnessing the destruction of Metropolis by the Joker and accidentally killing his pregnant wife. It's enough to drive anyone mad, really. Batman tries to stop Superman, eventually forming a rebellion against Superman's regime. Both are joined on either side by other heroes who share their feelings, and a superhero war rages on. Sometime after poor Batman has his back destroyed, Superman is confronted by Alfred, who has recently taken one of the superpowered pills Lex Luthor invented for Superman to use to create a superpowered army. What follows is an epic and totally unexpected beatdown as Alfred gets revenge for Batman, laying some serious blows on Superman with no remorse. Alfred cares deeply for Batman, and he really lets it show here, hammering Superman's head into the ground.
Coming in at number 10, we have Matter Eater Lad. One of the best parts of the Peacemaker HBO Max show so far has been seeing all of the out there references and Easter eggs that creator James Gunn has gotten away with making canon within the DCEU. And one of the most interesting references to another hero Peacemaker has met is Matter Eater Lad. A bizarre Silver Age of comics character with the ability to literally eat anything, apparently Peacemaker has allied with this guy on a mission before, and has even seen him eat an entire restaurant. Given his knowledge of exactly how Matter Eater Lad's powers work, it's a fair assumption that Peacemaker would be an ideal candidate if Matter Eater Lad ever needed to be taken out. Just maybe don't let his mouth anywhere near your weaponry, Peacemaker. Coming in at number 9, we've got Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. Although they may come from different comic book universes, comparisons between the Punisher and Peacemaker are pretty easy to make, with both characters having a warped perspective on justice compared to many superheroes, and both characters also having a particular love for firearms. The thing that sets these two characters apart, however, is that Frank Castle still has a line he won't cross when it comes to cleaning up crime, and would never willingly hurt a child. Peacemaker, on the other hand, is supposedly so committed to his cause that he doesn't care how many men, women, or children he'd need to kill for peace. And this willingness to cross a taboo line that even the Punisher wouldn't cross might just bring Peacemaker out on top. Coming in at number 8, we have Vigilante. While Vigilante and Peacemaker might be an odd pair of friends with a weird but accepting relationship on the show, in the comics, they're usually portrayed as much more straightforward rivals. Possessing no superpowers but a master in all sorts of weaponry and martial arts styles, Vigilante and Peacemaker are usually pretty evenly matched when they're positioned against one another by opposing forces. But given the extra abilities given to him by his variety of helmets, Peacemaker has just a few more tricks up his sleeve than his sometimes partner, sometimes rival.
Number 7, Batman, The Dark Knight Rises. Directed by, of course, Christopher Nolan, who had done the previous 2 installments, comes a pretty epic conclusion to the hit trilogy. Released in 2012, The Dark Knight Rises, as you guessed from the title alone, is about Batman rising up, but from where and why? Well, how about a broken back thanks to Bane, for starters? Yeah, this is 8 years after the Joker had a run-in with Gotham City. So now Batman has to return to take down Tom Hardy as he mumbles and frowns aggressively around town. So after Catwoman walked him into a 1v1 in the tunnels of Gotham, we get one of my favorite fight scenes from any superhero movie ever. And what I love about this scene the most is that there's no music the entire time. All you hear is Batman struggling to try and make a dent on this guy. And it makes it more realistic. There's no heroic music above that distracts you, it's just stressful. It's so stressful. I mean, you can see Bruce become more and more exhausted by the minute. Leaves you out of breath almost. And it all comes to a screeching halt when Bane picks up Bruce for one last blow, right to the spinal cord.
Spirit! Oh, your buddy!
Now, I know people give this movie a hard time, but seeing Batman get his ass kicked like this reminded me that it's not always the hero that gets the last punch.
Because they belong to me.
Number 6. Wolverine, crushed by the Punisher. The Punisher and Wolverine are a couple of rusty nails, real tough guys who don't take any guff and ask questions after the whooping is done. As such, when these guys go toe-to-toe in Punisher number 17 in 2001, they get straight to wrecking each other after a very short truce. They're both on the hunt for a guy who's been killing mobsters and leaving severed legs behind. Wolverine suspects the Punisher, and of course, Punisher's prime suspect is Wolverine. These two guys have a pretty nasty showdown that does not end well for old Wolverine. Punisher literally shoots Logan's face off and then blasts him right between the legs with a machine gun. Wolverine is doubled over in pain on the ground, as you can imagine, and Punisher, realizing he can't really stop Wolverine just by hurting him, crushes Wolverine underneath a steamroller and parks it on Logan's head with just his hands sticking out. Some very effective work by the Punisher and a seriously humiliating defeat for Wolverine.
And number 5, Spider-Man and KRAVEN. We take a look now at KRAVEN's Last Hunt, published in 1987, and it has quite an interesting illustration on the front page. We see a dark suit Spider-Man crawling out of a grave, covered in mud, and then in the background we read some alarming words on the tombstone, and it says, "Here lies Spider-Man." Huh, what? Okay, so this 5-part series, of course, as you would guess, centers around the death of Spider-Man in a way. But how does such a thing happen to old Sticky Pete? Well, KRAVEN is frustrated after his failed attempts to catch Spider-Man, so he comes up with this all-new plan that involves him shooting Spider-Man. So KRAVEN buries him, and even worse, he takes a Spider-Man suit and then takes his place in the world. So not only do you get defeated, but also replaced, adding insult to injury, literally. So then the new Spider-Man, our boy KRAVEN, now he roams in New York and brutally attacks criminals, including a group that was actually assaulting Mary Jane. So then 2 weeks later, Peter wakes up from the effects of the tranquilizer that KRAVEN used, and he digs himself out to freedom. Now, I've woken up late, maybe I've missed a class or two before, but I mean this is just a whole nother level of stress. So when Spider-Man confronts KRAVEN, KRAVEN gets defensive. He's like, "Oh, no, buddy, I'm the real deal now, I'm doing this. You go back to your little hole. I'm doing the Spider-Man thing now, alright? Get out of here, bucko." And then KRAVEN releases Vermin, who is just, a bundle of joy to hang out with. He attacks Peter thinking he was the same Spider-Man that had given him a beatdown before. And then Peter has to convince Vermin to cool her jets. Vermin is actually about to kill Peter until KRAVEN intervenes. I mean, talk about a messy 2 weeks, holy shit.
Number 4. Cyclops, Infinity War. Some of the heroes on this list got it pretty rough sometimes, and this defeat of Cyclops during the final battles in Infinity War is especially brutal. After Thanos had obtained the Infinity Gauntlet and performed his epic universe-altering snap, the remaining superheroes head off into space to battle against the Mad Titan. A lot of superheroes die, a testament to Thanos' epic power, but Cyclops suffers one of the worst deaths imaginable. Just as Cyclops uses one of his signature optic blasts, Thanos conjures an airtight, unbreakable cube around Cyclops' head, and, unable to use his blasts to free himself, Cyclops falls to the ground, suffocating in the cube. Captain America can't even break the cube open with a smash from his shield. A lot of the heroes who died in this event got it pretty quick. Even Cap is knocked out quickly with an epic backhand from Thanos that breaks his neck. This is a really tragic moment for all, but a super devastating defeat for Cyclops. I'm not even that big of a Cyclops fan, but the way this thing unfolded really made me feel for the guy.
Coming in at number 3, we have Batman. Unfortunately, due to YouTube's monetization policies, I can't repeat any of the colorful language that Peacemaker uses to describe Batman on the show, but it's safe to say that Peacemaker isn't a fan, whether out of genuine dislike or because of jealousy at the fact that Batman is apparently a much more beloved figure in the DCEU now. Whatever the case, Batman actually would have a hard time dealing with an individual like Peacemaker because of the vast difference in their vigilante styles. Batman refuses to kill, whereas Peacemaker is all about killing in the most over-the-top and gratuitous ways possible. Whereas Batman would be trying to capture Peacemaker alive, Peacemaker would be willing to blow up an entire building just to fry the bat. And while you can argue about the morals of being a superhero, Peacemaker's brutality just might take the win here. Coming in at number 2, we have Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. In a way, the modern incarnation of Peacemaker can be seen as a commentary on patriotic superheroes like Captain America, showing just how terrifying someone willing to do literally anything for their country or ideology would be if they also dressed up in a colorful helmet and costume. Whereas Captain America has been shown to become introspective on what justice actually means, and whether following his country is always the right option, Peacemaker is Cap's patriotism taken to the extreme, and who knows just how far he'd take that in a fight if the two of them ever had to meet. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the one and only Superman. I once again can't repeat what Peacemaker said about Superman on the show, but needless to say, these two would likely not get along. And while it seems easy to say that someone like Peacemaker could never hope to even injure Superman, the DCEU might actually beg to differ. The Suicide Squad movie makes a big point of noting how similar in skills and backstories both Peacemaker and Bloodsport are. And while Bloodsport ultimately wins their final shootout, both of them appear to essentially have perfect aim. And with Bloodsport being confirmed to have been locked up in the first place for putting Superman in the ICU with a special bullet, who knows just how badly Peacemaker would mess up Kal-El if he ever got his hands on some kryptonite ammunition.